Hello, everyone. My name is Diego Alfonso, and I'm your host with the Florida Aviation Network. We are broadcasting free and in the clear from the U.S. Sport Aviation EXPO at the Sebring Airport in Sebring, Florida. Today, our guest is Eric.
I told you introduce me as you. I can be Eric Alfonso. It's fine.
Eric, could you believe this? I forgot your name.
Eric
Crump. Oh my goodness.
What's
Eric
it been
Crump.
now? 10 years, 12 years?
This is going to be a good one.
I don't take it personally.
Okay.
Somebody put you up to this.
Eric is the Aerospace Program Director for the Polk State College. Eric.
That part we got.
Yeah, we got that right. Welcome to the show,
Thanks,
Eric.
man. Glad to be here,
And,
always.
As usual, by the way, those of you that don't know, the irony about this is that Eric and we go back more than 20 years.
A long time.
And you know, that's what happens after 70. You get those senior moments, and that's exactly what happened here just a little while ago. So now we got over that.
Well, it was my fault because I threatened to introduce myself as Diego Alfonso. That just ruined the whole mojo of the presentation.
Tangling there in the beginning, but and I know you're every time you and I get together is always very productive. It is very positive, and today shouldn't be any different. And I understand that you are involved, heavily involved. I understand. On the new airman certification standards.
Yeah.
So why don't we just break the ice from there and take the floor
Sure.
and tell us about that?
Well, I think anybody who has become a pilot at any point in history knows that the knowledge test, at some point in history, I don't know exactly when it was, but at some point, the knowledge test became this, pointless hurdle that everybody had to get over, where the validity of the questions you were being asked really didn't match up with what you were really doing in the airplane or in the NAS. And about 5 years ago, a group got together, and a really favorable FAA administration got together, and we said, you know what, we can do better than this. We can cut down this wall between the regulators and the industry, and we can work together to really improve the quality of the airman knowledge test. And that's really where it started. And a group got together and said, you know what, we have a practical test standard. So let's build a knowledge test standard. Let's build a document that actually says this is the level of knowledge on what topics you need to know for each level of pilot certification.
Right.
Which makes total sense.
Exactly.
Because if you look in the PTS today, the first element in every task says demonstrate satisfactory knowledge of the name of the task.
Right.
Well, what in the world does that mean?
Yeah.
What is that?
Right.
So let's take that element one and let's expand upon that and really qualify what that knowledge is. Well, the more that process went on, the more the group started to realize, you know what? We don't need two separate documents. We need one standard for airman certification. Let's not have two separate diverging documents and pull it all together. And that was the birth of the Airman Certification Standard. For listeners who have who pay attention to the Federal Register or maybe who get their news through Aviation Press, have seen in the recent past, in the last couple of years, Airman Certification Standards starting to get published in the Federal Register. Because our group, our focus has been, let's make sure that when we're creating testing standards, let's make sure that those are reasonable. Let's make sure that industry gets to weigh in and say, well, maybe that makes sense from a regulatory perspective, but in the field we actually do this, right? So that the FAA can stay relevant with what's going on in the industry, and the industry knows what's going on within the FAA.
Exactly.
Revolutionary concept, right?
Exactly.
Let's all talk to each other.
Yeah.
Communication 101.
What a novel idea.
That was basically the premise. And the Airman Certification Standards at their root are really a better PTS, if you want to think about it that way. And instead of just the normal skill stuff that you're used to, you'll find two other sections in the ACS, one labeled knowledge and one labeled risk management. Okay, so knowledge, skills, and risk management. Every task in the PTS got turned into a task in the ACS. We're finishing up the third prototype of the ACS where we've actually taken it out into the field and tried it. Revolutionary concept.
Yep.
Instead of creating a testing standard and just forcing it on people, let's go see if the thing works.
Exactly.
And if it does what we wanted it to do. So at the core of this process, it's really a partnership, a genuine partnership between the FAA and the industry to build a testing document that will then drive training in the direction we want it to go. Right? Because forever, at every DPE seminar you ever went to,
Yep.
somebody would use the two words risk management,
Yep.
right? We just use the word, right?
Yeah.
But in the field, what does that mean?
Right.
And when an applicant goes to a check ride, are they being adequately checked in every task that not only they can actually fly the airplane, but their thought process in flying the airplane is what it should be. So now every task has a very specific risk management element added to it with whatever applies.
Exactly.
So when you're landing an airplane, you know, we think about the landing task as being a set of standards, you know, plus or minus a couple 100 feet,
Right.
on the center line, you know, don't destroy the airplane when we land, those kinds of things. But what about collision avoidance? Did we forget that we're flying over power lines or trees, or, you know, there could be somebody not communicating in the traffic pattern and then maybe they turn in front of us? Where maybe we think about that as being a common sense thing. We know from accidents reports that it's clearly not, because people put their guard down because they're thinking about, all I'm doing right now is landing an airplane.
Exactly.
And you and I know that's the furthest thing in the world from the truth.
Exactly.
There's a huge environment out there going on around you at the same time. So that was really the core focus, and I'm very thrilled to be able to say that in the summer of 2016, the first ACSs will start to make it out to the public for actual public use. So it's been a very long process. But we also weren't in a hurry to, again, it wasn't, let's get this out as quickly as possible. Let's build a product that we think works. Let's test it to make sure that it works. And then let's make sure the public has plenty of time to train to the standard.
Exactly.
And so we're finally at a point now, and me from academia, I despise the phrase teach to the test.
Right.
And I think you've probably done a lot of check rides where somebody was taught to the standard, and that was all they knew.
Exactly.
Our hope is at this point, if you were taught to this standard, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
That you can actually say it's a good thing to be taught to this test.
Exactly.
Because it's everything you should be able to know, do, and consider.
Exactly. And I think it's about time. So I'm 100% behind you guys, and really thank you for all that nice work you guys are doing. And we'll see the result. We'll see the result pretty soon.
It's already there.
Okay. Do you have another area of concern that you would like to touch on, and it's called loss of control?
Can I just interview you on this topic? So, Diego, tell me your thoughts on it. This is a subject that I know is near and dear to both of our hearts. So, it is the killer of general aviation pilots.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, what would you say we can do to improve? Now, remember, loss of control. It's a wide thing because it includes everything that can happen by the loss of control. I took the landing portion of it and really started working on it to see if we can make it better. So that's why I came up with that acronym called LODCAL, LOD, loss of directional control on landings. And from your standpoint, what is it that you see in that particular area that we can improve on?
How long do we have? do we have a couple hours to have this?
No, I mean, just with a wide brush.
I think the first and most obvious thing is we have got to provide better instruction to flight instructors.
Yeah.
We have to teach people how to actually teach, not to just pass an FA oral and practical test. We've got to encourage mentorship in flight instruction. Go out and learn your craft from somebody who has done it, who's seen it, who knows what's going on. We need a very experienced instructor corps. And you can be experienced and still be low time. Yeah. I'm a firm believer.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And the core there is the attitude toward improvement, constant improvement in your skills. I think that's the group we have to get to, because that's the group that has the one-on-one contact with every pilot who comes through the system at some point or another, whether it's for a flight review or initial certification or a wing seminar or whatever. Those are the people we have got to get this message in front of them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to loss of control on landing, and we can sit here and talk about accident statistics, and you can pull the records and look at it yourself, but so many of these loss of control on landings deal with the flight instructors on board the airplane.
Exactly.
How does that happen? You can answer that question, Diego. How does that happen?
How long do we have?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it goes back to what you were saying. It's learning the basics of landings, which they're not being taught. They're not being. We are just told, and you probably heard this phrase: a good landing begins with a good approach. But how do we do a good approach? How do we do a good approach? What are the things, the elements that are involved in a good approach and the flair of the airplane? That
energy management.
Energy management.
Do we even use those two words? And when we're discussing it when you student pilots, well, that's too complicated. They can't understand that.
Exactly.
Have you ever walked down the stairs in a hurry and tried to stop? That's energy management.
Well,
it's not a complicated skill, but it's something we've got to get that message out.
And one of the basic elements of the landing is the glide.
Yeah.
Because that last portion the airplane should be gliding. And in our land of training, there are planes that land with power.
Sure.
But
In light general aviation.
Light training, they need to land. The pilot needs to master the glide. And so those are the things that we're going to discuss September 30th at the Sun and Fun Complex in Lakeland at the FAA Safety Center. We're going to be doing a seminar there that deals directly with loss of directional controls on landing. So we hope you're going to be there, because you're going to be there.
I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
My flight instructor students better be there too.
Yes.
If they're not.
And going back to what you were saying on energy management, I was telling Mark that if I was FAA King, there should be an endorsement of at least 8 to 10 hours in a glider.
Yeah.
Because the power, here's my reasoning. We're having so much problem with landings on the power side of the house. Why don't we hear the same kind of problems the guys that don't have an engine?
Right.
So,
because they understand the core concept of energy management. If you don't understand energy management, you can't land an airplane. You might get lucky, but you don't really know what you're doing unless you understand the way that you take that mass and momentum and convert that into, from a descent to a level to a flared attitude to a gentle, nice landing where I can walk when I get out of the airplane.
Well, here's one of the things that I'm correcting in my video, the one that is coming on now. I've heard many times people referring to the art of landing an airplane. It's not an art. It's a learned skill. When you think of, and this affects the pilot psyche too, because being an artist, it means that you were born with something. In other words, if you sing, most likely you started to sing without ever having a singing lesson.
Right.
I've
like
never
you,
seen,
for example. You're
for me, like
operatic.
Me.
You're a great
you know
opera
what I mean?
singer.
Pavarotti.
Can you do some?
Well, not now, because the mics
maybe,
are not prepared.
Maybe later. Okay.
We may overboost the system.
Well, it's not acoustically sound in here either, so it's fine. Maybe
the
later.
system may get overboosted. But anyway, going back to the thing, the basics of the landing goes back to the gliding, and that's one of the things that the pilot needs to master. But now, one more thing. If you now were FAA King, aside from what we talked about with the certification standards, what would you change? Just one.
I'm gonna make enemies if I say it.
Well,
is it okay? Will you protect me, Diego?
Yes, I would.
Will you protect me from the
you're under my
massive
umbrella
people
right
that
now.
are gonna come screaming at me? I would just do away with touch and goes.
Okay.
I would just end the entire practice of touch and goes, and I'll explain why. I was taught to land from my very first lesson, always done touch and goes all the way through my training. And I did it because that's what everybody did.
Yeah.
And some of them were okay, some of them weren't. You were in a hurry. And I remember the instructor was always like telling me what I did right or wrong, but I wasn't really listening because I'm trying to keep the airplane going straight because, there's a lot going on in that moment. Anyway, so I started actually providing flight instruction. And like everybody else, I started doing touch and goes with my students. And I had this epiphany. It's like, wait a second. This is not really an efficient way to either teach somebody to land or to take off, because you never actually practically land this way, and you never actually practically take off this way.
Yeah.
So why did we do that? And so I got to looking at it. Why is it? And I know it's something that you've looked at too. And it came down to an expediency. You know, we get more landings in an instructional period. I'm here to tell you, I've done a lot of flight instruction with new student pilots. After like 5 or 6, they're done.
That's right.
I talked to a guy the other day who told me in my flight instructor class that in one of his pre-solo lessons, they did 17 landings in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything? No.
Nothing.
I learned nothing. You know, I wasted money,
Yeah.
and really hurt my self-confidence
Yep.
about my ability to fly the airplane. But that's an aside. So if I could do anything, I would just end the practice of touch and goes for 2 reasons. One, because I'm much more concerned with my student learning to land the airplane.
Yep.
Let's get the airplane on the ground and get it to a stop. Then let's get off the runway and taxi back. I will assume control of the airplane, and I will provide a debrief to you
Exactly.
when you can actually pay attention and maybe even write some notes down.
Yeah.
That's the key there. And then beyond that, I think if we're talking about risk management, let's actually show them that
Yep.
we mean it and eliminate the unnecessary risk.
I started that about 4 years ago. I was still in the FAA, and there was 2. I couldn't impose it on the school. You know, I was the POI, but the chief pilot of 2 major 141 schools, I told him, I said, just try it, and then you're going to see the quality of the landings improve. You're going to
Significantly.
eliminate all these accidents, and the maintenance, keep track. And you're going to eliminate all this wobbling nose gears and
Shimmy
vent-
dampeners
Oh,
on a
my
172.
God, because
Yep.
it's all done. And I'm glad that now that it's taking root and then it's coming along. Actually, flight training professionals also in Orlando, they eliminated the touch and go too. So that's. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about that on Saturday.
It's in our operations manual. No touch and goes.
Eric Crump, folks. The last name is Crump. Make sure that you remember that. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks,
as always.
Diego.
I will
Always.
see you on Saturday. Looking forward to talk to you again. And folks, we're here at Sebring at the U.S. Sport Aviation Expo 2016. And right now we're signing off with the Florida Aviation Network. Again, my name, Diego Alfonso.